Welcome to the Tintina New Gold Rush Breakfast. I'm so happy to see so many of you here so early, bright and early here today. I'd like to first acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. I would also like to acknowledge that many of us, including myself, work on the vibrant traditional territories of the Yukon and the Northwest Territories. Now, I would like to introduce you to your host, Michael Gray, who is a partner at Agentis Capital. Welcome, Michael.
Well, we're living in interesting times, and this morning, I think you're going to have a very insightful and dynamic session. There's going to be 4 stocks profiled, and we're going to have a change up a little bit from the format that was done at Roundup and PDAC. So essentially, it's all about the renaissance of this granite-hosted mega gold province that's really vastly underexplored in the Yukon, Alaska, and the Northwest Territories. I'm going to give a shout out to Quentin Henne because he was there with all 4 companies, pretty early days, speaking to the narrative of the potential. So I think it's worth acknowledging him. So I'm an equity analyst at Agentis Capital, and the pleasure of moderating this session. For those that don't know Agentis Capital, we're an international research and advisory firm, 45 employees, 4 offices globally. Partners are here, David Stevens, Scott Speed, and all of our staff here. So we're really excited to be here. So over the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to have this exciting picture of the new Tintina Gold Belt portrayed for you. We're going to have a fireside chat at the front just to get going. And then we're going to have pitches by the companies. They're going to be about 5 to 8 minutes long. And then Q&A, both from me and the audience. So get ready with some questions. I've already tagged a few people expecting questions. Mick, thank you. Ben, thank you. Full disclosure, Agentis does provide independent research coverage to Snowline Gold. It'll be Tectonic, followed by Rackla, then Banyan, and Snowline. And a lot of the questions I'm going to direct will be a little bit driven by the audience here. So maybe a show of hands for who's technical. Okay, and then financial. Okay, so there's probably a 70 to 30 ratio. So we'll govern it accordingly. Certainly want this to be value add. So ask those incisive questions. I also want to thank Manuel and Jordy of the Fairmont waterfront. They've been very helpful, and thank you in advance for putting this together. Maybe a round of applause, including the breakfast. Okay, to set the stage, I've got about 7 slides here, and we're going to keep things relatively straightforward, but between Alaska on the far left through to the Yukon and then to the Northwest Territories, this is what we're branding as the new Tintina Gold Belt. If you look at the number of deposits, the mines are in the pickaxes there, and then the key deposits in yellow, along with the Tombstone Belt, kind of the sub complex within it in kind of salmon color, okay, where a lot of the talks are going to be based on. Look at the endowment. Fort Knox started in 1997 at a pretty low gold price, and it was really leveraged by infrastructure. So that was able to come into production, and look at that now, it's 13 million ounces. It's recently pivoted to more of a heap leach, but it's incredible what's happened to Fort Knox. Pogo, 12 million ounces, kind of a derivative of this intrusive-related gold system, but high grade, half ounce, underground, and very, very thick, flat quartz veins. And then, I don't know if John McConnell's in the crowd today, but congratulations getting Eagle Mine up and running during the pandemic. Not easy to do. Commercial production in 2020, and then overall endowment, past production, and current resources pushing 8 million ounces. And all of these have mine lives heading towards 2030. So very impressive. Just want to touch on the grades. And if you look at on the far left, the Fort Knox reserve grade was 0.8. All milling. Blue is milling, dark blue. Light is heap leach. And then hatched is, we'll see what happens. So that was a milling operation, and at a reasonably low gold price, under $400 an ounce. And again, it was that infrastructure that really drove that. As you can see, the next over to the right, it then pivoted to become more and more a heap leach operation. They were able to bring the reserve grade down to 0.33. The Eagle Reserve, I've been there a couple of times to the mine, at 0.67, entirely heap leach, and it leaches very well for a northern heap leach. Oralmac, which you'll hear about today, 0.61, and it's in a work in progress. Tara's going to give us a really good update, and I know she's doing a lot of metallurgical work. And finally, on the right side is the Agentis estimate of what Snowline has. Analysts are allowed to make estimates. It's a little pit constrained estimate, and we're coming up with just under 1.3 grams per ton in that discovery. This is Dr. Craig Hart's cross-section cartoon of the anatomy of the typical reduced intrusive gold system. And we won't get into a huge amount of detail, but this is important because we're talking about erosional levels. So up in the top, in this case, I'm going to make it sediments. In yellow, the Hornfelds region where the sediments get baked by the intrusion. And then moving down into the top of the intrusion, the purple is that cupola, which seems to be very, very special, especially in the case of Snowline. And then into the pinker color, where you're getting to the guts of the Pluton. These have small footprints. They're only about kilometer by kilometer typically, and you can see at depth there's a larger batholith that's spitting out these smaller intrusives up to surface, very attenuated. So some people could argue with these erosional levels, but we've got some of this in our research when we initiated, and essentially we think that Oralmac, Banyan's asset, is, I think everyone's in agreement, it's still in the sediments, it's in the Hornfelds, and the intrusive is still to depth. There's lots of smoking gun information on that. We'll get into that. Valley, Fort Knox, Eagle, and potentially Astro, they seem to be kind of at the same level. That could be a debate. I know Craig Hart's in the room and maybe chimes in on some of his thoughts in the Q&A. Craig, I'm hoping you're still in the room. Okay, he might have left. Oh, there he is. Good. And then flat, Tony may challenge me on this level, but I think it's a work in progress to understand its level out in Alaska. So a couple of features just to help with the narrative here and to understand these systems. Listen for some of these things as the talks get presented. Placer trails, gold mining placer trails, these typically have visible gold or some sort of gold associated with them that's manifest in placer trails. Okay. The effectiveness of stream sediment geochem is very powerful in terms of detecting these basins where you may have permissive gold systems related to these intrusions, and soil geochem is also very effective. Reduced intrusions, again, relatively small footprints. I mean, it varies, but they happen to be elongate depending on the structure, and multi-phase, intermediate to felsic intrusions. Hornfels country rock, and I'm putting in the geochemical vectors. If you do have bismuth and tellurium, you're probably very proximal. So that might be a really good thing in the case of being in the Hornfels rocks. You've got bismuth and tellurium, you might be sitting right on top of the intrusion. At least that's one way to look at it. And a lot of these insights are from discussions with Dr. Craig Hart and other company reps vis-a-vis our coverage. Sheeted quartz veins. When we initiated on Snowline, it was partly on the back of getting up to site because Craig Hart had said, I've never seen anything like this in my life. That was in a news release. That was worth $50 million in my book to be, for someone with that credibility to say that. The entire market didn't maybe understand that, but being the global expert on these type of deposits and chairman of Snowline, that really drove me up very quickly. Bismuth and tellurium, plus or minus tungsten, you're going to hear a lot about that. I've mentioned the lateral and vertical zonation. You tend to have the bismuth tellurium being very proximal. And then geophysical methods, ZTEM, resistivity, mag, lows and highs. The companies will illuminate those. And then I think more recently, lithospheric dikes, certainly getting an appreciation. Certainly on some projects at least, I think the Eagle Mine and RC Sitkans project, those are coming into play as being quite important. I put in this chart, and apologies to Tony for leaving out Alaska in this particular chart, but I think it applies to Alaska as well. This is the Yukon stock performance of all the companies that were in the property tours this summer, and you can see that, maybe it's partly seasonality, but this was a pretty good trade to be in terms of versus the GDXJ. Certainly outperformed gold. It was up 25% just a few weeks ago, but whether it was the property tour, whether it was all the financings, whether it was all the results coming out, this was a pretty good year-to-date return in a very, very tough market. These are the 4 companies that are going to be presenting, starting with Tectonic on the left, and then we're going to have Rackla, Tectonic in Alaska, Rackla in the Northwest Territories, then Banyan, right in that Mayo district, and then Snowline with the Rogue project. Yeah, I think we're going to invite the CEOs and presenters up to stage now. So, join me in welcoming our company reps up to stage. So we're going to have a brief fireside chat just to get going. I know last time when I was watching the replay, some of the individuals didn't get to speak for 50 minutes, and I think it's important as a presenter to actually get out of the gate and say something of that. So why don't we go down the line here, just who you are, your background, very briefly and concisely, technical or non-technical, financial, and just a little bit of color on background, and we'll just take 30 seconds each or so, and bang, bang, bang. Starting with Tony.
Tony Retta, President and CEO. I'm one of the founders of Tectonic Metals, Inc. I sort of cut my teeth in the industry by making an investment at the age of 21. It was 1995. I bought a junior mining stock for the first time. First stock ever was mining, and I thought it was pretty smart. Made some money. Bre-X happened, proved that I was quite dumb, and I wrote off the space. And then my foray back into the mining space was in 2005 with a company called Banyan Gold Corporation. Right. We were private. I was the second hire, and we took that from $3 million market cap to $520 million in 11 years, and obviously a team effort. And I cut my teeth learning geology by going on the field, which was quite foreign for a person that started out as an IR to do that. So I was quite fortunate that our CEO was very much integrative in the sense like, hey, you want to go in the field, and I just lapped it up. So
excellent. Scott Castleman, VPX Rackla.
VPX Rackla, interesting your story. My introduction to the mining sector was when the Hunt brothers were driving the price of silver up. My mother told me to buy silver as an investment. I bought it at $21 an ounce, and I think I sold it for a can of Coke. I'm a geologist. I've been in the industry for many years, 37-ish I think now, and joined Rackla in January, having previously been with the Yukon Geological Survey for 8 years.
Tara, CEO of Banyan.
President CEO of Banyan, yes, I've been here since 2016. Before that, I grew up, my father's a PhD geologist, out collecting soil samples and doing exploration, but went into geotechnical engineering because my father told me about this cyclical business that was dangerous, so I thought I could always get a job if I had an engineering degree. But really, I focus more on management, environmental assessment, permitting, relationships with First Nations, and running companies, a little bit of geology.
And Scott Verdell, CEO of Snowline.
My background is somewhat similar to Tara's in some ways. Grew up in the Yukon, and my father's a prospector, and so he dragged my brother and me out into the bush, and I ended up just sticking on with it, and that's actually the genesis of Snowline as well. So I'm a co-founder of the company. It's been a brutal market for a long time now, and nobody would buy these projects, so we had no choice but to launch a junior mining company.
My second question was going to be, what is your Yukon connection? But you guys have all done a pretty good job to highlight it with the Kaminak experience. Scott having been with the Geological Survey, Tara more or less born and bred, head of all sorts of associations in terms of placer mining and that, and then Scott, as he's just indicated, that's not supposed to happen. One thing I'd like to know, and put up your hand if you want to answer it first, who is your ore finder, or who are your ore finders on your team? Because in this market, with capital being tough to acquire, and you needing to be very careful with the drill dollars, who who are the individuals that are going to be finding ore for you? Okay, Scott?
Right over there, some of them. Yeah, we've got, that's been one of the most exciting parts about launching the company is the team that's come together. And it's not just, it was companies that we had optioned these projects to before. As prospectors, did a lot of really good baseline work. And some of the, well, I guess we can't even call it ore yet, but, some of the mineralization was already found at that point. And then the team coming in has done a fantastic job of fleshing things out. And there's a good range of experience. It's just
any specific names you want to throw out?
Oh, there's Thomas and Sergio.
Okay, put up your hands.
So Thomas is our VP Exploration, Sergio is our Chief Geologist, and they've done an incredible job of building out what we have there and doing so in a really efficient and productive manner through the season and safe.
Okay, fantastic. Who's next? Tara? Okay.
So Paul Gray, who was with Victoria Gold, and James Tom. And James really gets the credit for developing the model and digging through the database to put together the model to really understand what was going on at Airstrip. And then we've got a great team of young geologists as well. And James is not here today because he just wanted a day to go through the data and not be left alone by me.
Well, it's an interesting point because I think my experience having co-founded a junior is you do need people, I think, 24/7 thinking about how to find ore and not tied up with logistics. And James is, he's a smart guy. He beat my associate Jake in chess when we did our site visit, and that's not easy. Scott?
Sure. We've got Doug Murray, project geologist, sitting over there, and Armand Raypan sitting over in that corner. We got the whole floor covered. And as well, our CEO, Simon Ridgway. Simon's an older gentleman. You know Simon. He spent about 10 days out with us prospecting in the field. He loves to get out there. He prefers to be out there than here. And I was out in the field myself for the whole season as well.
Fantastic. Tony?
Yes. From our perspective, I'm usually the guy that brings forward the crazy geological ideas, and then the actual ore finding is probably attributed to our lead Vice President of Exploration, Peter Cleespies. Unfortunately, he's not here with us. But whether it's Trent Newkirk as our Senior Exploration Geologist, Ira Thomas, Kurt Freeman, Mick Roper, all these people have been involved in discovery of multi-million-ounce gold systems.
And maybe just an insight as to why, with the success in the Yukon, you pivoted more to Alaska with Tectonic.
Yeah, well, after Kaminak was acquired, Yukon got very noisy. It was a lot more staking activity. There was not a whole lot of opportunity left. I was intrigued with Alaska given the high-grade gold nature, the unexplored nature, and also we wanted to work directly with the native corporations. I was quite inspired by the Peak, which is now called the Mancho deposit.
We'll get more into that.
Sure.
No, that's a good point. We're going to now pivot to the kind of elevator pitches or the presentations, 5 to 8 minutes, up to 8 slides or so. I'm told there's a video or two. So we're going to do that. And so after they pitch, I'm going to have a few minutes for questions, and then we'll go to the audience. And I've tapped a few people. I really expect them to step up. Make this dynamic. And I think there is a facility on the table to write down questions if you want, and they can come up, or there's a roving mic if you want to be asking a question live. So someone will circulate the tables and pick up questions and then text me. So Tony, you're up to bat first. You can stand or sit.
Is there,
yes, that's your.
Mike encouraged me to stand up, but I didn't want to have my back to
by all means.
No,
go ahead.
I might stand in this position here. So, okay, there we go. Okay, so what you're looking at is obviously a drill photo. We've launched the first drill program on our flat gold project in 20 years. The main catalyst going forward is going to be drill results. I mean, we have some softer catalysts, such as new project acquisitions, things of that nature. But the culmination of 2 years of effort in acquiring this asset, getting it to the point where we've de-risked it with a full-scale production IBA agreement. It's one of the things that Tectonic does differently is de-risking projects on day one. So we work mostly on native-owned land, and we've partnered up with one of Alaska's leading native corporations. I do have a video where the CEO will be speaking to it. But from my perspective, it's go time. We're on the ice. The skates are put on. It's time to go score. So this is what we're all here to make that sort of big discovery. I can't promise a discovery, but what I will promise is that our team is putting our best foot forward to make this a reality. And we do think we're on the cusp of unveiling the next Tier 1 opportunity in Alaska. Speaking of BRIEX, this slide is here for a reason, so please take the time to read it. It is located on our website before making any investment decision in our company. So big deposits leave big footprints. I think it's important that every CEO, every company, whether you're an investor or a CEO speaking to the board, that you actually understand what your target is. Yes, this is a bulk tonnage, reduced intrusion related gold system, but what is the target? For us, we target Tier 1 opportunities. Well, that's great to say it, but show me the evidence. So the evidence that you see here, this is a small snippet of a 40 kilometer by 40 kilometer large 92,000 acre land position, again, on native land in Alaska. We're in the same mineral belt that has already produced one Tier 1 deposit. That's the Donlin Gold deposit, which is co-owned by Barrick and Nova Gold, currently sitting at north of 40 million ounces. So that's a good sign that you're in the right jurisdiction. Secondly, this is the 4th richest placer mining jurisdiction in all of Alaska. We have several potential intrusions here. Chicken Mountain is credited as the bedrock source for 1.4 million ounces of placer gold. The intrusion, you can see it here, it's the big red circle. It's 6 kilometers by 6 kilometers in size, and those pink lines that you see, that's the recorded placer production spilling out of this intrusion, not only on the left side, but also on the right side where there's no drilling. Good evidence to support that that side is also mineralized. And then we have the Golden Apex. You talked about the Craig Hart reduced intrusion related gold model. There's a volcanic cap rock there. Underneath that is hornfels. We have 2 historical drill holes that carry up to 20 grams per ton gold, telling us that that could be a potential buried intrusion. And then the next anomaly is actually an old hard rock mine formerly owned by Placer Dome that produced about 2,500 ounces. So we can trust the geophysical anomalies that they could potentially represent buried intrusions. We have 55 historical drill holes. We talked about Fort Knox. That was discovered and advanced by Fairbanks Gold, funded by Robert Friedland. They had Fort Knox, and they also had Flat. The first drill hole in this property was put there by the people that advanced Fort Knox into production. They were looking for a look-alike back in the mid-80s. Fort Knox is on a highway. This is very remote. 0.8 grams per ton doesn't always get people excited. Off they went. Out of those 55 historical drill holes, 25 ended in mineralization, and the average vertical drill depth is only 100 meters. So that, in conjunction with the golden soils, a 4-kilometer golden soil anomaly, is telling us that we're onto something potentially massive. We also, I mentioned about de-risking. Aside from the production IBA agreement, we did metallurgy before we drilled this property. We wanted to know, are we dealing with refractory ore, or we're dealing with something that's free milling? And so far, the first phase of metallurgical tests have demonstrated an open pit heap leach opportunity is potentially viable at Flat. Okay, so this is the video. This is actually the movie premiere. I'll just kick it off here. It highlights myself and the CEO of Doyon on site. So I'll just sit quiet here while this plays.
Big deposits leave big footprints, so that's our belief. We look for geological evidence that supports a large mineralizing system. We don't care about 500,000 ounces. We want to find a Tier 1 deposit. We had success in the Yukon, a successful mining project, but also good success with the community and the First Nations there. You know, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Doyon. So we want to acknowledge that we're on Doyon land, and we're working collaboratively together to ultimately find a mine that benefits shareholders and stakeholders.
So Doyon is an Alaska Native corporation created by Congress when they passed the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act 1971. We are the regional corporation for interior Alaska, so we're a very large region with a fairly small population. Congress told us to select a lot of our own land back, so we have a little over 12 million acres. Congress also told us to be a for-profit business and go out and make money for our shareholders, who are Alaska Native people. We had 9,081 shareholders in 1972. We have about 20,500 shareholders today.
I think regardless of what industry you're in, it's all about the people. We said, hey, we want to go meet with the local communities and villages before we acquire this project. And that really resonated with them. They saw us in the communities doing educational workshops. We also formed production agreements. These agreements cover exploration, production, reclamation, but also environmental considerations and also scholarship contributions, things that would benefit the communities. We have a mandated workforce obligation where we hire locally, things of that nature.
In rural Alaska, it can sustain a regional economy with jobs, with tax revenue, infrastructure, all the things that come from those projects. So you can see that excitement in a community and job-based and training and all those things that people need. It's been a nice relationship for us at Doyon, and we proved that by investing in the company as well.
You know, nothing speaks more loudly than someone saying, here's my hard-earned money, go explore on my property.
So now we're standing on the top of Chicken Mountain on the east side. The scale of this thing is enormous. It's a very, very, very large mineralized system.
The benefit of Chicken Mountain is that it has 55 historical drill holes. We're in an unglaciated terrain, so not only do we have the drill holes, we have 4 kilometer by almost 1 kilometer gold and soil anomaly that's telling us there's a big system. We have a geophysical anomaly that's 3 times that size, and then we have this big placer endowment. So it has something very unique that other projects don't necessarily have.
There's a 20-year gap of exploration in here, which is, to me, it's an unprecedented opportunity to explore using these modern techniques.
So this project has a lot of boxes ticked that tells us we're on a big mineralizing system.
The opportunity to put together a significant gold resource is very promising, and be able to work on something of this caliber. It's kind of a geologist's dream.
What's a really important aspect of the future is to get some resource projects or other cash economy into our rural communities. So it's an alignment of values as much as anything.
To say I am proud of the relationship with Doyon would be an understatement. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And trusting us to work on their land is a huge endorsement, and so we value that significantly.
How are we doing for time, Mike? I'll bypass a lot of this and just highlight a bit of the team which we touched upon. It's relevant to note that most of the discoveries, at least the gold discoveries, that our team has been involved with is in the Tintina Gold Belt. And I think it's important when you look at a team and the people, it's not just geology. Yes, this is a technical session, but finding gold's important, finding economic gold more important, and obviously the ability to permit that. And you can see sort of the boxes that our team ticks here. I'll wrap up here with just our share price performance, and we've done quite well. If you're in our last financing, you're in the green, which is quite shocking given the current market conditions. And I will end off by saying we actually have Indigenous shareholders that have invested up to $4 million in our company, and that would be the Native Corporation. So with that being said, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Tony. Check just for text and stuff like that. What is your all-in cost per meter?
All-in cost drill meter?
Yeah, all-in cost.
Yeah, so I would preface it by saying this is our first program, so we have zero infrastructure, and we're looking at between Diamond and RC a blend of close to $1,000 a meter.
Okay, US?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's all in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to be really efficient. And is there stuff you can do to innovate next year now you got your feet wet?
Yeah, well, we actually have a road system, so we utilize track-mounted RC drill, but some of the targets, we had to use the heli to get there. So once you have your infrastructure, and obviously the more meters you drill, you can absorb some of that cost. So it's that we envision. Yeah, we'll utilize the road system more, and obviously as you get into, like our drill holes are 400 meters apart. Okay.
And your average grades, roughly, or on a length-weighted average grade basis?
Well, I would, if I adhere to NI 43101, we don't have a compliant resource, but we do. What I love about the system is that there's bulk tonnage, so we have like 0.98 grams per ton over 100 meters in historical drilling, but we also have 12 grams over 24, and drill core that carries 200 grams over a meter. So I would say this is going to be a traditional, at least based on what we know, it's going to be in the gram range is what we're seeing.
So on the bulk disseminated, you're about 100 grams meter product, and then on the higher grade, local high grade zones, what was the intercept again?
The highest one is 200 grams over a meter,
Yeah,
but
okay.
12 grams over 24.
Okay, no, fair enough. And I did warn each one a few questions that were going to be coming, and one is the bismuth gold ratio, if you're willing to share.
Yeah, I mean, this is our first drill program.
That's really the only.
This is our first drill program, so most of our data has been derived. They did do like bismuth analysis in some of the historical holes. Tellurium was not done, but we're seeing, you know, sometimes 250 times up above detection limit.
Do you have an average, or is that the peak?
That would be the peak.
Okay.
But your bismuth to gold is, you know, 3.5 to 1. There's a range.
Okay.
Sometimes it's 15 to 1. It also depends on the different host rock.
Yep.
That it varies, but there's definitely a strong correlation between bismuth, tellurium, and gold. And then that's where we're seeing the highest grade intervals.
And before we go to the audience, do you want to talk about the price action in your stock? It's, you know, you've had quite a bit of movement throughout the year.
Yeah.
And how impactful is seasonality on your share price?
Well, it's funny. Seasonality is something that typically plagues us. Last year, our stock ran in the winter months and had the best performance. And we're kind of in the same predicament right now where the stock is performing quite well, especially given the backdrop that we're in. So I think there's a lot of excitement, us included. Our largest shareholder and financial supporter is Crescat. They're big, you know, they were in on Snowline and other Tintina stories early on, us included. So we've been able to capture some of that momentum and enthusiasm. And I think, I don't, you know, knock on wood here, but I do think it's going to continue, just given that there is the anticipation of drill results probably the end of the year, you know, early Q1.
Okay, a reminder, there is a texting number on the table. You can text, that'll go back to the back table to Stephanie Hansen of Snowline, and I'll get it. Let's go to the audience for some questions. I think Ben Whiting had a question.
Well, you got lots of technical people here, so I might as well shift to the other side. You mentioned the BRIEX,
Yeah.
I guess came to light in 1997.
Yes.
Was when the proverbial hit the fan. A lot of projects for the next 5 years after that died on the vine.
Yes.
Do you see Alaska and particularly the whole trend as being a place where you could find the projects that fell through the cracks? Are there going to be many more projects that you see that disappeared from people's attention and are just sitting there but have this historic potential?
Well, pretty short answers.
Yeah. Well, yes is the answer to your question. And our flat project is a great example because Fairbanks Gold dropped it in 2000. So 1999 is when the VSC collapsed, for those that recall that. So Alaska is ripe for the plucking for those people that can stomach the north. There's no shortage of opportunity, and you know, Alaska's the size of BC and Yukon combined, and the mineral tenure is phenomenal, and the infrastructure is actually quite phenomenal as well for northern jurisdiction. So yeah, no shortage of opportunities in front of us. It's just about having a market that will support early stage exploration.
Got a little bit more time, but just over a minute. I think Mick Carew had his hand up at one point.
Yeah, so you said you had 55 historic drill holes.
Yes.
So the current drill program or the program that you're going to embark on, first of all, what's the vintage of those holes? Sorry.
It's
vintage of those holes, and secondly, in terms of the program, will any of those be kind of, you know, re-drilling some of those holes for verification, or they will be expansion drilling, or what's the plan?
Sure. There was two attempts. So one was by Fairbanks Gold, 1985 to 89, and then the second one was 1995 to 2000. So those are the two vintages of drill core. Right. Most of the drill core, the diamond drill core, was stored in a warehouse, in the Native Corporation warehouse, which is where we used where we collected the samples for metallurgical analysis. The first hole of the program, there is one of the core area that's most mineralized They never did oriented diamond drilling back in the day there, so that's one thing that we've introduced, and it not only was a step out about 100 meters from the 12 grams over 24, but we also drove it down to 500 meters. And so we wanted to see if, based on the bismuth tellurium, and if you believe in the model, you have 20 historical holes in this one section over 400 meters, and every hole hit gold. And you have the 12 grams over 24, so use oriented diamond drilling to get structural orientation, see can you connect things, how does it hang, and then drive further down into the Pluton, or further down in the cupola, if you will. And then the next hole after that was a 400-meter step out. And then we went and did some more reconnaissance with the RC. So it's designed to understand historically what's there, see what's at depth, and then test some new exploration targets.
We're going to cut it off there. Maybe save a question. We're going to be back later at the very end for more Q&A. But that's the time allocation. Scott Castleman, VPX Rackla, you're up to bat.
Thank you, Michael. I think there we are. This is a shot of our drill on our hit property. Beautiful day. We had actually a really nice summer up there, even though there were lots of fires in the north. We managed to escape it where we were. Rackla, as you'll see from my presentation, is a relatively new kid on the block compared to the other three companies presenting up here today. So we'll look at some earlier stage projects and why Rackla got involved in the Tintina Gold Belt. Rackla started acquiring ground in the eastern part of the belt, right at the Yukon Northwest Territories border. We started by staking 3 claims south of where the North Canal Road crosses into the NWT, the Rackmain, the Joss, and the Cinnabar, which Cinnabar we decided doesn't meet our criteria. We're going to be letting that one go. And then that was done late last summer. And then shortly thereafter, in September of last year, we signed options on our 3 key projects, which are the HIT, Astro, and SUR. You can see on the right top side of the slide here. And then through the winter, we did more research and we staked another 3 properties, the Excite, the Black, and the Flat. So 3 of the properties are options, the other 5 are 100% owned, staked by Rackla Metals. Our reason for going to the belt, as I say, we went late last year, was because of the success of the other people up on stage here. Tara and her company were very rapidly able to build a 6.2 million ounce resource in a very short period of time. That was very interesting. Scott and his crew were able to develop something that's a reduced intrusion related gold system with spectacular results. And our CEO, Simon Ridgway, could not stand by and watch this happen. So he figured we had to get involved. So we did a lot of research to get in there, and these are the properties that we decided merited further work. The criteria we used for selecting was pretty well the list that Michael had shown on the board. They were projects that had good gold and stream sediment anomalies. If there was that tellurium bismuth association, even better. We were looking for Cretaceous intrusions, the Tombstone, Tungsten, and Mayo Sweet intrusions in that belt are the key ones. We were looking for a magnetic signature that from these reduced intrusion systems generally is about 1 kilometer in diameter, generally is a magnetic low surrounded by the Hornfels magnetic high, and projects that had some historic work done on them that maybe wasn't quite followed through with this model in mind. So that's how we came to acquire these 9 projects. So I'll zoom into the Astro. That's was our flagship, is our flagship project. The Astro intrusion, as you can see on the circle on the left, it straddles the Yukon Northwest Territories border. It's just to the north of the North Canal Road. You can see the airplane down at the bottom right of the circle. That's where our camp is located. Our camp varies from about 5 kilometers to 12 kilometers from our drill sites. The Astro work zoomed in the map on the top right. There was a bunch of historic work done in 2017 to 2019 in the sedimentary rocks northeast of the intrusion. The focus there, it was Newmont and Evrim did that work, and they were focusing on Carlin-style mineralization. They didn't find Carlin-style, but they did come up with a lot of soil, stream sediment, rock sample, gold anomalies. We looked at that database, looking for the bismuth tellurium association, and there was a great correlation. None of their work was done, or virtually none was done inside the intrusion. So we took that work and brought it, the same suite of surveys into the intrusion, stream sediment sampling, soil sampling, prospecting, and we drilled 12 holes for a total of 2,000 meters on the Astro intrusion, Astro property. To the north is the HIT property. Astro is an option from Origin Royalties. HIT is an option from Avon Resources, and we just exercised all three of the options that you see on the circle to the left just last week. So we really like the properties. We're getting good results. Going to HIT, there was a bunch of historic work done there. The last work was done, I believe, in about 2006. That work mostly focused on the Hornfels margins. The Hornfels margins of these are gossinous, shiny. As a geologist, I can understand why people go and look at these things and rarely go into the intrusive rocks, which tend to look boring for the most part. There's relatively little alteration, and you're just looking for sheeted veins. We took the work that was done at HIT, modeled it, and went inside the intrusion, focusing virtually all of our work in there. Stream sediment sampling again, soil sampling, prospecting, and we drilled 5 holes on HIT, scattered all around the intrusion, testing a variety of targets. You can see at the bottom right of the map, color-coded is an arsenic in soil anomaly and a bismuth arsenic in soil anomaly. And in that area, we mapped an abundance of sheeted veins on surface. The rock on surface there, it's above tree line, it all spalls off into very narrow, slabby pieces of granodiorite. And the picture on the left, on the bottom, is a picture from our hole number 3 at HIT, and you can see the density of sheeted veins there. Those veins have pyrrhotite, a little bit of pyrite, arsenopyrite, bismuthinite, and I didn't mention at Astro, but one of the holes there intersected a very white, soft mineral, which we believe is pure bismuth. It's in for petrographic work right now, so we'll determine that very shortly. So we do have bismuth in the system at both the HIT and Astro. And this is a section from 2 of our holes at HIT, HIT number 3, HIT number 4, and you can see the color bars there are the density of sheeted veins that we're getting down hole. Our highest density over 1 meter was 55 very narrow veins over a meter. So it's really intense, and based on the results particularly what Scott's getting at Valley, we're really encouraged by that density of veining. And then another picture of core on the left, and you can see that pattern, that striped pattern there. That's not foliation, that's veining in the granodiorite. And then looking at Sur, we didn't drill Sur this year, but we hit it again with the early suite of stream sed, soil, and prospecting. I should also mention that we flew airborne surveys over all 3 of those projects. Astro had an older survey, we tagged on to that. Again, seeing lots of sheeted veining at Sur. If you can see the numbers on the gold in rock samples there, we had numerous samples greater than 3 grams per ton. All of them or the majority of them are on the margins of the intrusion in the Hornfels rocks at the bottom right. And there's a photo at the bottom showing the density of sheeted veins in the intrusion. So that's the targets we didn't get around to drilling this year. In total, we drilled 17 holes, 3,000 meters, but it's on our bucket list for early next year. That's our team. I mentioned Doug and Armand are in the audience. Simon has a long history in the Yukon, started as a prospector, claim staker, line cutter, eventually worked to start forming his own company. He's been financing for a long time, and he's found mines and put mines into production, but he loves the exploration side. There's our outstanding shares. We're 71 million now, fully diluted 91. Insiders hold 30%. We have 2.7 million in cash as of yesterday. So we're well financed. We did the financing late summer so that we can start early next year. We're still awaiting the last few batches of drill sample results. I expect those within the next couple of weeks, and then we'll press release everything that we have at that point. Drilling is planned to start on Astro and HIT early in 2024, middle May is about the time you can start working up there. We plan a maiden drill program on Sur next year, and we'll take our other properties and try to build them up to the drill stage as well, and then ongoing research and looking at other opportunities. So further to Ben's question, we think there's lots of potential there still. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Well, I can attest to the great exposure having been up to site this summer to the project. How much value is that Newmont data set in terms of dollars? Like, how much are you leveraging in terms of past
they
expenses,
spent, so
roughly?
it was, the work was done in the 2017 to 19 period, and I think they spent $2.5 million on it. So
Okay.
that's recent
start.
dollars. It's a great data set. As you know, they do good work.
And it's pretty early days.
It's all in the sediments, although unfortunately,
Yeah, that's what I was
but
gonna
that
say.
did leave it open for us.
Early days in terms of the intrusives with only 2,000 meters drilled to date, so it's early innings. One thing, a couple things, I guess, you emphasized the Cretaceous age mattering in the Tombstone Belt. Maybe expand on that a bit for everyone?
Yeah, so within the Tombstone Belt, all of the intrusions except for Tara hasn't been able to find one yet are Cretaceous age. There's a very narrow band between the different suites, the Tungsten Suite, the Tombstone Suite, and the Mayo Suite, but all three of those host gold deposits. So any one of those is prospective. And there are other ones, but they continue all the way along. I didn't mention, but historically, the eastern part of the belt, there are tungsten deposits there at Mactung and the past producing Cantong mine. Historically, the eastern part of the belt was believed to be tungsten rich and gold poor, whereas the western part of the belt did have tungsten, but it was believed to be gold rich. And what we're finding, particularly from Scott's work and his team, is that that's not necessarily the case. And what we see at HIT, Astro, and the other locations, there's lots of gold on the eastern part.
Let's just talk about gold in terms of, there's visible gold in some of the systems, and I'm going to steal Craig Hart's comment. For a lot of the disseminated gold, it is fly sheet size. So you can't see it. It's non-refractory, obviously, and it's very, very important as the majority component to a lot of these deposits. So visible gold is very wide-ranging in its occurrence. For example, Victoria Gold Eagle Mine, I was told by, I think it was Paul Gray, there's out of 250 kilometers of drilling, there's only 12 incidents of VG. And I think Tara and Scott can find that in some cases in 12 meters, 12 incidents. So there's quite a range. Maybe you can just touch on that a little bit, Scott.
We did not see much visible gold in our core. We did see one hand sample, field sample that we collected, and we did some panning on one of our occurrences. I can't remember which one, if it was HIT or SIR, and there was flour gold in that heavy mineral concentrate. So if it's there, it's very fine. We still got some work to do.
And phases, you have a megacrystic phase. Do you think that's important, or is it just part of the evolution of the system?
It seems to be in general. When you look at the deposits in the belt, we haven't determined any phases yet from our drilling, but we're keeping our eyes open for that.
Let's go to the audience for questions. I think Jerry Carlson had one. Jerry?
I did.
Yeah. If we could have the mic come over to Jerry.
I guess I'm one of the old timers. Oh, thank you. It was always the tungsten out there, and tungsten's important in the West for sure as an association.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see how you're able to come back to the eastern part of Yukon. And but my question though is actually more to do with geophysics. I noticed when Michael was starting out, he mentioned geophysics was important, especially airborne, and ZTEM, and I'm wondering what kind of airborne geophysics you're using, and has ZTEM been flown over the property?
We didn't do ZTEM this year. We used the Precision Triple Boon Gradient Mag. They also had a VLFEM sensor and a radiometric sensor on there. So we've got those three data sets that we'll be working with over the winter.
Okay. We've still got a few minutes. Harry Polkrant, did you have something on the financial side you wanted to bring up? We're going to have a mic to Harry in the middle, Jasmine.
Sorry, don't have a question.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, here we go. Right in front here.
Gord Chapman, B2 Gold.
I see that the plutons here, or the intrusions, are sort of straddling the border between Yukon and Northwest Territories. Have you found any issues with permitting there or differences between the two?
There are differences. No issues yet. Everything that we staked, we need in the Yukon side, we had to apply for permits this year, and all the work that we were doing was in what's considered a Class 1, and that was all seamless. No problem at all. The Astro on the Northwest Territories side, we are riding the tail end of Evrim's 5-year expiration permit. That expires in March of this coming year. And early in the summer, we applied for an extension to that permit. I've been working with the Sawtooth Land and Water Board on that. And they've had that application all summer long. And so far, there are no issues with that one. So hopefully we can just roll that over and keep going.
Any more questions?
I should also mention very quickly that because we're straddling the border and we're in the boundaries between, and our property stretch over such a long area, we're dealing with 4 different First Nations, 2 on the Yukon, 2 on the Northwest Territories side. And we've reached out to all of them and have had no issues in dealing with them.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Scott. Next up to bat is Tara Christie, CEO of Banyan. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Okay, everyone knows where we are by now. So I'm the president and CEO of Banyan. You're looking at our project site. You'll notice a few things in this photograph. One, you can see the main road. This is the highway that goes through the property. Also the brand new power line that was just reconstructed in 2021. It's only energized to half of the capacity that it's built to, and it services 2 mines in the community of Keno up the road. So how often do you actually have a power line that has capacity already on your property? It's only 50 kilometers south to the hydroelectric dam down that road. This is the road out to Victoria Gold. You're looking at our 6.2 million ounces right here, an on-surface low strip ratio deposit. Cell phone service, even 4 bars on the cell phone here. Fiber optic cable goes out along that road out to Victoria Gold. We need 50 meters of power line to connect to our own grid, which would connect our camps. That's just to get us across the highway right away. So that's a pretty small distance of power line that's needed. Also, really moderate topography here. No rivers, no lakes, no key wildlife areas, no steep mountains, no glaciers. Those are all great for mine building. I'll be making forward-looking statements as well. And, I have a little video. We've changed it up a little bit from the last time. But there, all of our properties, including Sitka, also off to the west. Victoria Gold, we'll be a 200,000 ounce producer, heap leach, that's the plan. Their Raven deposit, they've put out some pretty spectacular results from that. We stand at our Thompson Creek camp and we can see the lights of those drills across the valley, so that's very close to us. 1.1 million ounces at 1.7 there, and I think that's going to be a much higher grade deposit. Here you can see our on-surface, it's on-surface, 3 deposits, airstrip, which is where the first mineralization was. We'll get to it in just a second. The power line deposit, which was our discovery in 2019. If Victoria Gold hadn't changed the location of their substation to across the road, we might not have drilled there. James put together that geological model, but Victoria Gold thankfully had cleared it, and it wasn't geotechnically suitable because there was too much overburden. So we didn't even need any bonding. We didn't need to upgrade our permit to drill on that. We could just go and drill it, and that's really when we made the discovery there at Powerline. And it's gone from nothing to over 3.8 million ounces in just since discovery in 2019. There you can see the resource. The gray is the pit shell. Oryx Hill and Powerline are now connected with the drilling that we're doing. If we did a resource update, that would now be a more continuous body there. But generally, 5 kilometers by 1.5 kilometers of mineralization on surface. The deposit is open. It's open at depth. It's open to the west. It's open to the east, and also to the south. Airstrip, we believe, would dip underneath Powerline. Airstrip is a calcareous deposit, dips at about 60 degrees. If we drill deep beneath Powerline, we believe we'd intersect it. And Powerline are these same sheeted veins with lots of visible gold that you see at Snowline, with the exception that we're in the metasediments and we haven't found an intrusion yet. So we'll have lots of catalysts from the drilling that we did, both expanding the resource to the east at Oryx Hill, but again, lots of the key Tier 1 attributes that all of these projects are talking about. Our goal this year was, or last year, was to get over 5 million ounces to be significant. And we have the advantage of being year-round where we are with those roads. We routinely drill into December, start again in February. That's a huge advantage. If people think of northern projects and they think they're not accessible in the winter, we see that Victoria Gold and Hecla, right beside us, also operate all year round. Our share structure, I'm the third CEO of this company. I took it over in 2016 as the CEO, had to find another property. I knew about Ormac actually because I've got a long history of alluvial mining. I actually privately purchased the alluvial rights over top of this property in 2013. And that's one of the reasons I knew about it, and that and knowing good old Bernie Kreft, another Yukon prospector who'd taken out some high-grade right from surface, so set out to acquire it. But that means I didn't get any seed stock, and I've had to buy my position in the market. I'm currently a 4% shareholder, which means I've made over $1.5 million in investment in the last couple of years. So I'm pretty heavily vested alongside my shareholders to make money through my share price. We have Victoria Gold as an 11.3% shareholder. We have a Cisco Development, Franklin Gold, and Fidelity as large shareholders, and another institutional ownership at 30%. It's an interesting jurisdiction with both Hecla right beside us and Victoria Gold. It was nice to see Hecla purchase ATAC. Nice to know you're interested in gold in the Yukon. Our team, I think we have all the skill sets. We are lean and mean, and we spend dollars well. Our all-in drill cost this year was $400 a meter, even with the regional exploration that we did. And we did considerable regional exploration. We have 300 square kilometers. We focused on less than 5% of it during our exploration because we were so focused on adding ounces. And this year we stepped out to do basic soil sampling and drilling on our Nitra as well as South Ormac. But because this project is getting to that scale where we need to start thinking about project development, we've added new members to our team. Kai Woloshin lives in Whitehorse. He was just a key member leading the Encero consulting firm in Whitehorse, doing most of the baseline studies and permitting for many of the other Yukon projects, some of who are in the room. He's a great addition to our team. He knows permitting, and yes, that combined with my experience in permitting and understanding of environmental assessment, I think is really key for us. We continue to have a strong technical team, adding Brad Thrall to help us both with understanding the economics and the metallurgy. Mark Blythe, who's here as well, brings that wealth of mining experience and economics and how you move these projects forward, along with Jason Neal. We've got a great team that has all the skill sets to move us forward. I think we check all the boxes as well, and you'll hear that from all the companies. There are not very many tier one assets. We're the 5th largest resource in North America with our 6.2 million ounces. A tier one location where you can permit with one First Nation and a settled First Nation that has agreements with the 2 mines beside us. We've got that existing infrastructure, which is a huge advantage. We have existing baseline data. We've got 2 mines beside us showing you can do it. Our current valuation at about $10 per ounce is pretty compelling. We'll have lots of news flow this year through the exploration results we have. Importantly, we have a strong treasury with just under $9 million in the bank today. That gets us all of our G&A plus a very significant exploration program for next year. We're starting to really de-risk this on all the technical fronts, doing some high-level engineering to understand how you might mine it, looking at where the high grades are, doing that metallurgical work. I think it's an exciting jurisdiction. Thanks to the other explorers, we're getting lots of attention in the Yukon. And our metallurgy, we've got a very robust program. We've said that we'll have information coming here in 4th quarter. We think we're well on track for that. Early work, similar to Snowline, these deposits, when you do bottle rolls on pulps, you come back with 90%. So amenable to cyanide. We're looking at both range from heap leach to mill and CIL. We know it's not refractory, but look forward to more work or for information on this as we go into the fall. And there will be more results into the new year as well. We're encouraged that we're already starting next phases. Permitting, we have a huge advantage here in that we have all of Hecla's data. Alexco, that's part of our agreement, had committed to give us all their baseline data along with Victoria Gold. We did a gap analysis back in 2021 and started our own programs to supplement that, which means we have a huge advantage in how fast we could potentially permit this project, with the key caveats, of course, being you need to have that relationship with the First Nation, and you need to decide what your project is before you go into permitting. But lots of key attributes with the infrastructure and no key wildlife areas on our property. That's just showing there we are at the 5th largest resource in North America. We believe the project has the potential to continue to add ounces to get us further up that curve and closer to the top. But there's not very many out there. And I like this little quote from Warren Buffett. Whether we're talking about stocks or socks, I like to buy quality merchandise when it's marked down. And I think that applies to all of the quality explorers that you're hearing from.
Very good. Well, I'm going to combine an audience question with a question I had. Very rapid growth. Congratulations.
Thank you.
6.2. When's the next resource?
Well, you know, I think people can already do the math. Powerline and Oryx Hill are so remarkably consistent. I don't think we need to rush to do that. I think we need to hit the next milestone when we can see like 8 million ounces, or we're ready to launch into a PA. Those are probably catalysts. In this market, resource updates aren't getting value.
You don't necessarily want to be in the 8 million ounce club. I think there's less than 12 8 million ounce greenfield discoveries since 2006. So it is a bit of a special club if you go there.
Yeah, I need a few more meters to get there.
Okay.
And is that the best value? And that's kind of the question we're asking ourselves is how do we add the most value in 2024 for our shareholders? What's the market can actually appreciate? Yeah, we could get there.
Cost per meter again, I think you mentioned it.
So we 400 per meter all in this year, and that includes considerable. If it's only drilling, it's probably more like 375.
Okay, you're the only one with the infrastructure.
Canadian.
Canadian advantage. Maybe expand on that a little bit in terms of not having a seasonality.
Yeah, so COVID is actually good for us. It meant we had to buy all kinds of things, and we had to get used to having shortages of things. So we did things like bought in large fuel tanks, so we can take 3 B trains full of fuel, so we can store 120,000 liters of fuel. So that's given us price optionality. We don't have to worry about barrels. We watch fuel prices, and we can have 30 days of 30 to 45 days of fuel stored on site, which means we can actually get better prices than just about anybody else. Plus, we've got Victoria Gold there right beside us, so there's already a really established route. It's highway accessible, 150 meters off the highway. You don't have a lot of transport costs for your fuel. We put in a tremendous amount of our own infrastructure, shops, and we purchased all of our pickup trucks and everything else, so we don't have any rental costs on any of that. And that's really paid off now because we don't have a high exploration cost. We used to be $250 a meter. We were $2 an ounce in our first resource. So that's why people say, well, why haven't you done regional exploration? There was no extra money. We were so focused on adding ounces.
What's your bismuth to gold ratio?
Okay, it's different for the different deposits.
Okay.
So airstrip has 16 to 1.
Okay.
When you go to Powerline and Oryx Hill are about 8 to 1.
Okay.
And then
tellurium?
Tellurium is about 0.8 for airstrip, 0.7 for Powerline, and 0.3 for Oryx Hill.
Okay, thanks. And we'll come back to Scott later to get those.
And give James a little bit longer, and he'll show you the distribution of where all that is. But he's been really busy lately.
Okay. Just got a text from Quentin Henai. Tara, when are you going to drill that deep hole and find the mothership intrusion?
Yeah, well, we have contemplating. We've got a few dots on a map, and we also have the little challenges of forest fires this year, which was probably the main reason why we didn't keep drilling into the fall, and then the markets really sold off. So that was one of the things we were definitely thinking about for fall drilling. So stay tuned on that. We still have cash for it if we think that's the best use of our money.
Okay, and you have flat veins, sheeted vein complex within sediments. And you didn't show the long section, I don't think. But,
no, not in this presentation.
Maybe just briefly touch on the fact you do have some higher grade zones within the deposits. Maybe just touch on that in terms of the optionality you may have on processing.
So so one way to look at it, so just go back to our sensitivity chart. So I didn't put that in there either. If we'd have picked a 0.5 cutoff, we would have 4.5 million ounces at 0.95. And that's in our 43-101, so people can do their own math. The higher cutoff grade is not in. And that also goes to some of our highest grade intercepts, which I know you're going to ask me, like 75 meters of 1.75. And there's a couple holes that are very similar to that. So yes, we do have some high grade zones. Some of it start right on surface. We generally see a couple trends through the deposits that are east-west. We've got kind of a northern zone that's right on surface, and then a southern zone that is a little bit deeper, but again, shows where those high grade trends are. And that's something that we're working pretty hard to try and understand what the controls and distribution of that is.
So that's 150 to 200 gram meter intercept.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go to the audience. We've got a few minutes. Mike Berkey, did you want to chime in here in terms of your background with seeing a lot of these systems and specifically on on
Sure.
Banyan Ormac?
I mean, I was lucky enough to visit Bernie when he was high grading on the airstrip area back in the day. There was a felsic dike associated with the mineralization there that he mined. I'm sure you're searching for that intrusion that we know is down there. But are you seeing lots of felsic dikes in your drilling? Do you see higher grade gold associated with those dikes when you do intersect them in the drilling that you're doing on any of the deposits that you're working on there?
So the felsic dikes are mostly airstrip, and we do see them there, and they're not actually associated directly with the higher grade gold. So they haven't been here's the smoking gun. Yes, there was an intrusion that created that somewhere, but I don't know where. I'm not sure. We almost have, we think, multiple phases of mineralization, so it makes it a little bit more complex. We do have, we're working on understanding the distribution of like andalusite and cordierite, trying to get some isokrads. We've got good old Peter Reed, who's 88 and works for Hecla too. He's busy really trying to help us with some of that. We're doing some age dating too with some of the scheelite, trying to understand the age of mineralization, because we do know that we've been asked lots of questions and given lots of opinions on what people think is going on. So we're working on it, Mike.
Yeah, my understanding is there is a felsic dike that goes from the property all the way to Keno Hill, so that's a fairly major...
Yeah, they're kicking around there.
Yeah.
And certainly to see the intensity of mineralization in the metasediments, the intrusive source or whatever's down there is probably multi-phase, going over a few millions years, not too much, but it's going to be pretty exciting when you tap into that, I hope.
So again, that comes back to Craig Hart's model of the attenuated intrusion up in the sediments, sheeted veins, and to depth there being that potential prize. We've used our allotted time, so let's now move to Scott Burdell, CEO of Snowline. You're up to bat.
Thanks, Michael. All right, so we're Snowline Gold. We are our flagship project is the Rogue project out in the eastern end of the Tombstone Gold Belt and the Tintina Gold Belt. We're located in the Rogue is located in the traditional territory of the Nashonayak First Nation, and we are not too far from the North Canal Road, about 75 kilometers. And as with the others, we'll be making forward-looking statements. That's an important part of what we do. On the corporate side, we have about 145 million shares outstanding, 160 fully diluted. We have a very strong treasury. We have around 40 million in the bank right now, with another 18 million in warrants that are in the money and set to expire within the next year. So a strong treasury to keep us going forward. And the stock has seen some positive response to news, but it's certainly not one-to-one. We come out with great holes, and which really changed the game the way that we see it, and see the stock go down. So I don't know, it's junior mining, it's interesting, but we're seeing some valuation in a difficult market, so it does show that that discovery still pays. And as for our register, we have strong management and insider positions. Institutional interest is certainly picking up just in the past really months. B2 Gold have taken on a 9.9% stake in the company, so we're certainly happy to see that that stamp of approval on things. And Keith Neumeyer was a key driver in launching the company through an RTO, and still holds a significant stake in the company. We have a strong team behind it, as we mentioned. Tom and Sergio are both here. Our CFO, Matt Roma, Stephanie Hansen makes a lot of things that you see happen, and Craig and Sarah are both here as well. So it's our management team is young and driven, still each very experienced in their respective fields, and I think that what we've been able to do in going from a new junior with a single drill program 2 years ago to 4 drills on 5 different targets and a 50-person camp with satellite programs is a testament to the amount of horsepower that these people and more on our team are putting into what we do. We're very serious about building a good company and very serious about exploration and advancement of these targets. And similarly, the board is very dedicated, multifaceted, and a really talented group that are available at the drop of a hat to respond to matters. So I think we have a really great group, and that's allowed us to do a lot of what we've done. This has also allowed us to do a lot of what we've done. And this is just a plan map of the valley discovery. And you can see with our drilling this year, all the blue circles are drill results still to come, with the exception of 53 and 54, which we just had out this morning. But a key takeaway from this is just looking at the consistency. You see, and thinking about the grades of these systems, where 1 gram per ton, you're already kind of in unusual air, rarefied air for this kind of a system, what you really see, and then sort of see big continuous zones of 1 and 2 and even higher gram per ton that hold together in hole after a large area. It's really exciting, and you can make out the topography, the brown lines in the background there. The actual deposit itself is in the bottom of a big, broad, flat valley, so it's really a favorable location for exploration as well. And this slide is getting kind of tedious to read, but that's part of the point. If you look through these labels, you just see hole after hole of hundreds of meters of often grams per ton, and it just it holds together in a very unique and ultimately very mineable way. It's a cross section, so just noting A to A prime there, kind of right through the middle of the thing. But again, this is a cross section, not a long section, and you can see how these grades hold together. You can also see an important feature is the way that the strongest grades are right near surface. So, again, going back to a mining outlook, you're digging into this thing and you have high-grade material with basically no internal dilution, almost no strip from day one. So that means very rapid payback. That has a lot of positive implications for the actual economics of having a robust operation. And this is just a view in 3D of the system. So actually you're the first to see this. And yeah, this is just gives a better view potentially than the cross section. So while there's no scale bar, you're looking at, when you look in the, sort of greater than 1 gram per ton, you're looking at about 600 meters of, for greater than 5 to 600 meters long strike length, more than 400 meters of width. And you can see some of these holes, like that deep one just on the left side of the screen there, kind of coming out of view. That is hole 39, 553 meters, averaging 2.5 grams. And really the takeaway here is just how this does hold together. All the little white sticks are holes yet to come. We've done a lot of drilling. More than half of this season's drilling is still to come. But what we have seen from a few scattered holes that we started the season with to what we've done this year is this deposit has really taken shape, or this mineral system that we are quite confident there's a deposit there, has really taken shape. And so, yeah, just seeing this grade continuity is exceptional, has us excited. And again, the geometry, we couldn't have designed a better deposit if we had tried. Just for reference, there's a picture of the valley itself. And again, you're looking at a very favorable geometry. The same structure that caused that valley that some glacier exploited is the same structure that these intrusions exploited in the Cretaceous to emplace the valley intrusion. And just a bit of a totally unbiased opinion on the deposit. Clive Johnson, in making the initial investment, just mentioned. Well, you can read it as probably better than I can, but yeah, to have somebody from a company like B2 come along and take a look and call it one of the most significant discoveries in Canada in recent history is certainly pretty exciting from our side. But it's, again, it's sort of a designer deposit as far as we see it. It has large tonnage, high grades for this kind of a system. Mineralization is continuous with very little to no internal dilution, low strip, highest grades starting at surface. Our metallurgy is looking really good. We've thrown just off-the-shelf processes at it with bottle roll cyanidation, flotation, and CIL, and those can come back with average recoveries on a 75 micron grind between 94 and 96%, with the full range being 90 to 99% for those tests. Again, the topography works. It's remote, but it's accessible. We're about 30 kilometers from the Plata mine, which has a heavy equipment winter trail going to it, and you can actually see the mountains that are just by Plata in the background of that picture. So that's the route to get to that trail network, and no big crossings or anything or geographical barriers to get there. And again, just for the near term, we have a lot of news to come. That number has dropped as of this morning, but we're still over 11,400 or something like that. The Valley is just part of the picture. We launched the company to look at this as a district. We didn't really know that Valley was there as it is when we started here, and it was the broader geological picture that drew us into the area and work that had been done previously by companies that we'd optioned these claims out to as prospectors during the last gold boom around 2011. And the results that they found both on Einerson, on Rogue, and on other projects in the area were really phenomenal. And there are a lot of big anomalies in these blue stars. And so we have a lot of work left to do, and Valley really serves as a proof of concept for this broader regional picture. So we have not lost sight of that. We certainly recognize that we have a unique asset held by the tail with Valley, and that's not lost on us. But also not lost on us is our idea that this region is very prospective to produce big gold deposits, both reduced intrusion-related systems in the case of the Rogue target, but also other mineralized systems. That's alive and well. And we've done a lot of work on regional surface work throughout our project package. We have over 3,000 square kilometers of ground. So it's a huge area, and we've been very aggressive exploring a lot. And yeah, it's an interesting area, and I think it'll continue to evolve as we continue to look out there. Near-term catalysts, we're looking again at the results from this year, not just at Valley, but on other targets as well. We've just finished a large diameter PQ core, so we're going into more advanced metallurgical testing, which will help to inform hypothetical mine designs and process options and that sort of a thing. So we really can cement our understanding of what this operation could look like. And of course, we're always we have our heads down out there and are really looking to tie things together even further. I'll close off with a picture of the Valley outcrop, and this again speaks to not only Valley, the mineralization there that you can see the sheeted veins, but the regional picture. This was found by a fellow named Shane Carlos, and he was working for Golden Predator at the time, and he spent a lot of time with us this summer working on the regional picture. But it just shows that you can walk up creeks in this part of the Yukon and find things that may be a tier 1 asset literally sticking out of the ground with no previous description of the mineralization, no claims over the intrusives, not even on a geological map. So it's really a unique set of factors that come together here to have this kind of world-class geology, this kind of prospectivity, and to have it all in one company that's well-financed to go out and look at it. It's pretty exciting to be a part of it.
Thank you very much. I think I see my foot in the creek there somewhere. That was a site visit thing. Scott, to what extent, you kind of alluded to in your first statement, to what extent are you a victim of your own success in terms of sequential drill results coming out?
Yeah, well, like for example, this morning's drill results, they're actually quite substantial in what they do to expanding the southeastern part of the system, but I'm not sure I can, and usually I would know, every number and every subinterval and that kind of a thing, but it's gotten to the point where it's just like, okay, I think Thomas responded to my email like, oh, another 600 gram meter hole, what do you do? So it's a good problem to have, but it is a problem if people start to fatigue and see like, oh, 600 gram meters and not really register what that means in terms of building scale. But I think ultimately, whether or not we can remember the details of every single intersection as we go through it, the model is growing and the picture is growing, and it'll all be encapsulated at the end of the day.
A question from the audience, because I want to get to a couple of these. Any thoughts about a resource being published anytime soon?
Certainly thoughts. Yeah, we're trying not to tie our hands to any firm date on that just yet, but we're obviously looking at data as it comes in and figuring out the best course forward.
Bismuth to gold and tellurium to gold ratios?
I believe bismuth to gold is around 18 to 1 on average, and tellurium, I'm not totally sure, but I think it's around 5.
Okay, no, appreciate that. Strategy in terms of in terms of the most important goals over the next 12 months for creating value?
Yeah, so there are a few key goals, and one is continuing to advance Valley, and that's both through exploration. One thing that we learned from this year's program is that it's bigger than we thought it was, so that's a great problem to have, and there's more work to do in advancing Valley, both in better delineating high-grade zones and in better delineating the boundaries of the system, and even potentially chasing it at depth in a few key areas. And then beyond just the exploration, though, it's pretty clear to us that this is a special kind of a discovery, and on those lines, we already started environmental baseline work. Actually, we have a full year now of monthly water quality data and continuous hydrology data for that stream and others in the area to do our baseline work. But building out on that and doing this metallurgy, doing the more advanced metallurgy, doing everything we need to get a better idea of what this could look like, what the options are for advancing this further beyond exploration. And so that's a key part of the push. And then, as I mentioned, this is a regional picture, and we have been working hard behind the scenes to really advance a lot of these targets, and we have a very large pipeline of targets at various stages, and some are quite promising. And so that's a major catalyst to look for in the next year, is if we can build on that regional exploration thesis and not just advance Valley, but find several more of them.
Given we have this image up, can you briefly give us the anecdote of the Minister of Natural Resources when he was here, what he said?
Sure. So that's John Stryker and our now Premier Ranch Supply were out on site, and John is an engineer, but looking at the stream, he said, "Are there any salmon in here?" And we've actually have done some aquatic work, environmental DNA and so on, and have not found any fish in the stream, let alone salmon. And so, kind of worried about where this line of questioning is going. He said no, and he looked at it and kind of scratches his chin and says, "Well, you think you could probably pull about 1 megawatt of power out of here." And so I was like, "Oh, okay, that's great." And
that's a good thing. Technical question from the audience: is the structural setting of the placement of the valley intrusion the primary driver of its exceptional endowment, rather than specific composition of the intrusion?
Sorry,
I'll continue on. Is it the structural setting or the composition? And then there is significant endowment RMAC with no linked intrusion. How much weight would the respective teams give to specific structural components in ranking Tombstone, Mayo intrusion targets and evaluating the regions around their main deposit?
Well, initially just looking at, I guess structure versus composition in terms of Valley's endowment, I would say that the jury's still out, and I would think that there's, it's somewhere on the spectrum in between those answers, and that the structure is likely, we are at a structural intersection. I pointed out the big structure running down the valley, and just that's why the valley is there. There's also a cross-cutting structure that comes in, and we're just kind of in the eastern part of that orthogonal intersection between those structures. But that said, I think that the polyphase nature of valley, there's a porphyritic phase that we're seeing at depth, and that really, the geometry of the grade that's coming into shape this year really suggests that porphyritic phase is important. And it may be a structural thing that allowed a fluid to ascend, or a magma to ascend that much quicker and form that kind of porphyry texture, and that might have been a key driver. But in that kind of a scenario, the structural and the I guess textural controls are kind of hand in hand.
Okay, we're done on this phase. Thank you very much, Scott. We're going to have a wrap up. Next 15, 20 minutes. I think we technically have till 9:30. The time might be driven by, I think we'll go to 9:15 at least, but it might be driven by audience questions too. So let's go back to the whole group and maybe your single biggest competitive advantage. Who wants to take that first? Okay, Scott, go ahead.
I think, as I mentioned, we're very early stage, so we're not nearly at the level that these guys are, but we are road accessible. So don't ask me our drill meters cost, because we were just starting up this year, so everything is very high, but we do have road access.
What's your drill meter cost?
I'll give you our total budget was $3.6 million. And
Okay.
we fell within that. We only drilled 3,000 meters, so you can do the math. But in that was
Fair
all
enough.
of our staking airborne and whatnot on all the properties. I'll give you a number next year.
Okay, Tara.
I would say our location with the exceptional infrastructure we have.
Okay. And do you want to touch on your First Nations relationships at this point?
Sure, we've had ongoing relationships since we, acquired the property, and I've had ongoing relationships with NND for, well, I've got a long history working in the Yukon. 25 years ago, I was working with all the First Nations in the Yukon, and I actually probably am the only person that got 11 First Nations on side with an agreement that we took to the federal government for fisheries and oceans. That was a lot of work. There are only 14 First Nations in the Yukon. I only needed the 11 because the other ones didn't have any alluvial mining in their area. But that took me 2.5 years of really hard work. But that also established my relationships in communities. And then 12 years ago, I started a charity, which with John, working with First Nations and schools all across the Yukon. We continue to have regular communications about education with every First Nation education department across the Yukon. So that combined with actually purchasing a home in Mayo, what was that, 7 years ago, and being present there with our kids. I know who's married to who and whose kids are whose, and that means you have a lot of credibility. So yes, there's a new chief in Mayo and new council, and
Donna Hope,
and I've known her for a long time. She's
Okay.
a great artisan. I've worked with her on things, and yes, I'm going to work hard to make sure I establish a new relationship. We have a meeting.
she worked at Hecla as well at one point?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, she was one of their environmental.
Okay, great. Tony, competitive advantages?
Advantages? I would say there's
As a
two.
company?
Yeah, no, but it's one. So our two competitors, our relationship with the Native Corporation. They're a for-profit billion-dollar entity managing 13 million acres. Most of that land was picked based on mineral prospectivity. So we have a pipeline, and they cut a check for $4 million into our company over several different investments. So that's unprecedented. When I go into the communities, we're holding hands walking in there, and so that's the main competitive advantage. And then I would say the other one is the horsepower under the engine here. I didn't touch upon this earlier, but going into this drill program, we've assembled a team, 2 well-known open pit heap leach engineers, recognized internationally. We brought on 3 South African structural geologists. And what I'll say to solidify that our relationship and the talent at the table is that everyone's working pro bono. They've been given options based on KPIs, and one of those KPIs.
So not being paid any salary?
Nope.
Okay.
And our board gets paid nil right now. That may change.
Fair enough.
Everyone's there for one common goal, and that's to find a mine.
Okay. Scott, competitive advantage?
I think that our data set and our land position are a big competitive advantage. As I mentioned, we were prospecting there as far back as 2008, and we had huge projects in the area. The precursors to the current project packages that were optioned out to various companies that did a lot of really good baseline work, and then that all came back to us in the doldrums of the past decade. And so we've acquired a land position, or reacquired a land position based around that quality legwork and that a really data-focused and geology-focused land acquisition strategy with over 3,000 kilometers now picked up as a part of that. Ultimately, making the discovery that we did in a fairly bad junior market, or market for juniors, it led us to be able to sequentially pick up a lot of that land again. And
it was actually surprising that there wasn't a big area play.
Exactly. And so
that was the shock to me. In my experience.
So ultimately, we ended up picking up. Let's just stake basically the entire Rogue Plutonic complex and be done with it. And so that's what we did. And we've had that kind of flexibility on our other projects too, in terms of being just able to iteratively build them out based on data, based on observations. So now that land package and with a sort of economic or market engine like Valley, helping to support that exploration on a regional scale as well as advancement of Valley allows us to do that big regional exploration that we would have a hard time doing as a junior otherwise, to meaningfully explore that large of a land package without just blowing ourselves up with dilution.
And any questions? I've got a couple questions on text, but just put up your hand if you've got a burning question. Tara, let's talk about some shareholders. You've got a really admirable shareholder franchise with a lot of blue chip funds. Maybe just talk a bit about how you attracted them briefly, because you're very institutionalized.
Yeah, so back in 2016, it was really hard to get anyone to help you finance. So I had to learn how to finance and build relationships with these funds myself. So, a lot of those, companies have helped us get some of the funds in, specifically, Cormark and PI. But like the most recent deal with Fidelity, that was my relationship. I worked on that for 6 months to get them in and did a site visit. And really, it took a lot of work to get that funded, whereas some of the others have come. But again, it is all about building trust and relationship with funds and showing them the long-term vision that you have.
And that's been a more recent addition for you. Scott, can you maybe talk about some of the bigger funds that own Snowline?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, just in the past few months, or this calendar year, we've had a lot of institutional interest, well, a small amount, but a lot more than basically zero previously. We had a few funds that invest in early stage projects like Crescat and Commodity Discovery Fund take positions early on, and that really allowed us to do what we did in terms of advancing things. But now, as getting into, I guess, more of a blue chip exploration story, if you can say that, we're seeing groups like 1832 and like Van Eck, and even generalist funds like T. Rowe Price taking up positions, as well as a fund, B2 Gold Corp, who bought a position as well. So.
Okay, Tony and Scott, I know you guys are a little bit earlier getting institutionalized, but you have the Crescat endorsement. Any other funds you want to highlight that have come in?
We have Gold 2000. We have RCF was our first fund on board. Given our market cap, we're not necessarily an institutional product, so you have to really kind of sift through. But we've been great at attracting family offices and U.S. retail and European retail, so that's been our go.
Okay, Scott?
Crescat would be the main one that kicked us off last year, and we recently financed Adams there. Was that 3L, Adam, that led that?
Yeah, 3L.
Yeah.
Okay. No, great. I asked Scott this question, but I want to make sure I get this question in for the other presenters. And it's really, what are the most important goals in order for you to create value over the next 12 months? Let's start with Tara.
Okay, well, that's a tough one in this market, but continuing to show that this resource is open to growth, really de-risking it. Metallurgy is a real key goal for us, and I think it will be a really important catalyst. And some of our regional results showing that there's additional potential on our properties for additional discoveries. You said short, so.
Yes, yeah, no, I like the short answers, concise. Scott, value creation, next 12 months, what are the most important goals?
Our drill results coming in. We're expecting those within the next couple of weeks. We're very encouraged by what we're seeing. We've collected a lot of data. We've had 1 year looking in the region, so there's lots to pull together and plan for next year.
Okay, Tony?
Yeah, I mentioned we have a 3-year plan with every acquisition. So, to that point, we have obviously drill results that will be coming down the pipeline, maybe at the end of the year, if not Q1. We have a new project that's on trend, another intrusion target, which looks very sexy. And that should be announced very soon here. And then in addition to that, metallurgical results. And we're just scratching the surface still. So that other side of Chicken Mountain, Golden Apex did not get drilled this year. That's the on-trend intrusion there. So those will be the targets for next year's drilling.
And back to Scott for his bismuth to gold and tellurium to gold ratios.
Most importantly, I think we'll be looking at the drill core for that. So we got to wait for those results to come in. But the reason we selected these targets was looking at the historical work, particularly the recent work that was done where they were analyzing for bismuth and tellurium, and we did see good correlation there. So we'll get back to you on those numbers. I'll put them in the press release, Michael.
Appreciate that. Questions? I'm going to go to the screen here. Question for Tara. I don't see the strip ratio in your slides. What is the strip ratio and how do the grades look at depth?
So this is an inferred resource, and so that was one of the things that came up as a question when we updated our resource. In our previous resource, we did have a strip ratio published, which was very low. But because there were questions about, how this is a very large resource, would you actually mine the whole thing? QP wasn't comfortable putting a strip ratio in it. So
Okay.
that's a challenge for us, and I think you just need to look at some of the sections to see where the high grade is and really see, similar to Scott's, mineralization starts right on surface. So
Yeah.
how you mine it will depend on what that strip ratio is. We know Victoria Gold's 1-to-1.
Right,
As an
No,
example.
it's rapid fire, 10 seconds to answer this question from the audience. Starting with Scott Castleman, what is everyone's preferred prospecting tool for discovery?
Ooh, my goodness. Just straight on prospecting. We've got good exposure.
Okay,
and
like
just
the
being on
answer.
ground.
I get it. Tara?
A drill bit.
Okay, Tony?
Good old drill bit.
A smart answer given your project.
Is that an allowable answer?
Oh yeah. Well, in the context of that project.
Yeah, track-mounted RC.
Okay, Scott?
I mean, geochem in an area where things are still poking out of the ground, it's a good vector.
Okay, fantastic. Sue Craig, you had a question, I believe. Do you want me to come back to you in a minute? Okay. Actually, before I forget, Sarah Weber has sent me a text to remind everyone that the Yukon Chamber of Mines Geoscience Forum is November 19th to 20th, 22nd, sorry. And there's a capital markets for geologists course on the Friday before that. I happen to be one of the presenters. I was the only capital markets individual that went up to the Yukon Geoscience Forum last year. I found a bunch of really good ideas. I had my top 10 takeaways. I would encourage anybody that is interested in the stocks up there and what's going to happen to go up there. Excellent presentations, very technical, but given our orientation, looking for best of breed and highly technical stories, I would encourage everyone to go. So thank you for that reminder, Sarah. What are your biggest challenges? Who wants to start with that? Scott?
I think just continuing to battle with assay fatigue, I suppose, is one near-term challenge. And then just figuring out the path ahead, just getting things in place for our baseline work, figuring out what options actually look like and that sort of a thing. So.
Mm-hmm. Tara?
I'd say, finding the path forward that not only advances the project the best, but actually is appreciated by this market. You don't want to spend a whole bunch of money drilling. We had 10, 20,000 ounces sometimes with holes and market.
Is that something you talk to your board about and try to navigate?
Absolutely. That's something that we are doing a whole lot of work right now to look at all the various paths forward and how to add the most value. And that in itself is giving us all kinds of great information. So.
And what's your treasury right now? You said it was 9 in working capital? Okay. Scott?
Two things that worry me and maybe make me a little bit nervous now are we're renewing our permitting. So I'm a little bit worried about that for next year, although things are going well right now. And the other is, now that we're set up, reducing our costs for next year.
Okay. Tony?
I would say market fatigue. In this market, even when you're winning, you feel like you're losing. So we raised $7.5 million last month in a terrible market. Yeah. And it's still like, what have you done for me lately? So I think our industry's tired and this is who would guess we're in a bad market given the audience here, right, at 7 a.m. So, but that's probably.
Well, I would argue that this Tintina Gold Belt on a global basis is outperforming the rest of the market.
I totally agree.
And I think it is part of this marketing and education that's shining a light on it to a greater extent. But I showed the outperformance of the Yukon basket, which is really impressive, and whether that continues or not is another question. But I think there's kind of a pan-Alaska, Yukon, Northwest Territories play here that's really a new mega province. So I really agree with Quentin Henai that this could be a really future, tremendously endowed region, and it's fairly early innings so far. How's everyone feeling? Any more questions? Andy Brown, thinking about a question?
Andy Brown.
Oh, which one? Was that the structural one? Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, which I got, I think. Okay. Anybody else?
Didn't Sue have a question?
Okay, question here.
Just a general question to the participants. A lot has been said, and I think it's very important, about your relationships with the First Nations. Maybe if everybody could quickly outline what are the main things you're offering to the First Nations, and what are the main things you're expecting from the First Nations in your partnership?
Okay. Who wants to take that first?
I can take it.
Okay.
So what are we offering and what are we expecting? I think what we offer is an open ear. So I go into, whether it's a corporation or a village, asking, basically listening, because I think it's actually you're at fault as soon as you assume they need something. So that's first and foremost, but ultimately, what motivates them. So understanding, learning, and from the native corporation, they have, in our case, 12 million acres, and they want to see a mine, and we're the exploration company to do that. So that's kind of what we're offering. What we're expecting is just support and alignment, and we have that. So we're
Scott?
happy about that.
Yeah, no, similarly, I think just an open ear and an open mind is what we can offer at this stage, as well as the potential mechanisms to work together to build value and to build a robust community and a healthy community, just based on having economic resources and economic independence. So that's taken shape in, we've been sitting down, for example, with the Development Corporation of the Tectonic done. I was personally, even before launching the company, and looking about options and how we might structure things, and a lot of good has come out of that. For example, our camp is powered by a 27 kilowatt solar generator that is a huge capex for an early stage junior, but we were able to work out a lease arrangement with the DevCorp, and they've launched a renewable energy company based on the success of that project, and it actually serves our project extremely well. What we expect from the First Nation, I don't think we have expectations. I mean, we just, we hope that we can build that kind of value, and we hope that we can engage in a meaningful way that allows us to address concerns and identify opportunities.
Do you want to touch on the fact that you're on the Natchonai Dun territory, but you're going to be coming to the south once the project's developed onto the Ross River Casca?
Yeah, so that's, we also have had a lot of conversations with the Ross River Denna Council, as well as their development corporation. And so that's, it's a likely access corridor. It's not necessarily the only access corridor, but the nearest road is 75 kilometers away from Valley, and that's within Ross River traditional territory as well, as are some of our projects. And so, so a similar arrangement there, where we're it's early stages, and we've had ongoing conversations for a long time, just trying to keep them appraised of what we're doing and trying to understand how we can, what mutually beneficial advancement looks like there. And it's a similar situation, for example, to what Pretium had, as I understand it, with their Bruce Jack being in Tahltan traditional territory, but then having an access corridor coming through Niska. So yeah, it's certainly not unprecedented.
So Terry, you partially answered this question already, but do you want to give a little bit more personal anecdote in terms of the new chief, Donna Hope?
Yeah, no, she's quite an artisan, and I've known her for numerous years. But I think I do want to answer your main question about we have been having regular communications both with Chief and Council and Lands from when we took over the property, because the first thing we had to do was permit it, and so we really had to go and listen and understand the concerns, and that's actually part of the basis of what we've done in our baseline work and why we focused on that. So we have a very regular pattern. We go before we send in our pre-season report, we make sure that they comment on it. We later have a meeting with Chief and Council and Lands together, and then in the fall we have another one, and then when we have our post-season report, so we have very regular communication is what one of the main things that we're offering, and again, listening and trying to make sure that we're coming back with not what we want to tell them, but what they want to hear, which does change. And so that's been really important, I think. The other really important thing that my team does very well is we hire and train from the community, and we have very individual schedules, which helps to get community members. We thought with Hecla and Victoria, we'd never be able to get people from the community because they pay more, it's got the prestige, but we've been tremendously successful, and we have lots of long-term employees, and it's because of how dedicated my managers are to actually to to training. And people talk about that, but when you actually do it and you have to actually say, okay, why can't you come to work? And that's a real benefit because we're road accessible. You know, I got to go because I got to go hunting, or I've got childcare, or this, that, and the other. It gives us that opportunity, and we go above and beyond in that. And I think that's very much recognized in the community. And we have long-term people that work for us because of that.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask Scott to answer the question, and then unless there's any questions from the audience, we'll probably wrap up, give each presenter about a minute to wrap it up with final closing comments. Okay, unless I see questions in the audience right after Scott answers the question that you already mentioned. You've got a bit of a juggling act with the number of First Nations.
Yeah, so for this year we used a local consulting company from the Yukon Archer Cathro to manage our camp and provide a lot of the services. Their First Nation employment was greater than 50% on our project, so that was great. We use Ross River suppliers for fuel and our rough cut lumber. And then on the Northwest Territories side, we had 2 hirees from the community of Tulita, and we also assisted a prospector from Tulita who was prospecting in our area with helicopter access and so on. So we're an earlier stage, not quite at the level of engagement with the First Nations.
Okay, sounds like you're all on your front foot in terms of that. And I want to acknowledge there are other derivatives. Sitka's got a table here producing really good results. Cor and Mike and team. I don't know if anybody from Onyx is here, but when I agreed to do this, because that was a spin out of High Gold, I said I've got to mention Onyx. So anybody from Onyx here, I've done my job on that front. But let's go for the wrap up. 1 minute pitching this group on why Tectonic to start.
If you didn't get it by now,
yes.
I think the takeaway is that we're passionate. We're here to find a mine. We engage early. We got alignment from the local First Nations communities, and this project would not be like High Gold. Actually, it was tucked on a shelf. To walk into a place that has 55 drill holes, visibility for a 1 million ounce resource already, and we're the first ones to touch it in 20 plus years. Stay tuned, it's going to be exciting. And we have structural geologists, Andy, so we're all about structure, and that plays a huge role in this project.
You got another 40 seconds.
Thank you, Mike Gray. Yeah, we need more of this. And I'm not just saying that to put pump air in your tires. And I want to thank everyone for taking time. As bad as the market is, this is great. This is what our industry is all about. It's about the people. And it's great to keep those connections and relationships alive, and having people wave the flag for us. Explorationists out there.
Okay, thank you. That's 45 seconds. Amazing, Tony.
How can I 15?
Scott.
So we are very excited about our project. We've got 1 year of exploration in the belt. We really liked what we saw. I think you can probably tell from the pictures of core that we think we have a couple of reduced intrusion related gold systems in a couple of those intrusions, to the point where we decided to exercise 3 options and make payments on those just a couple of weeks ago. We want to get out there and are looking forward to working them next year, and we look forward to putting out our drill results here in a couple of weeks.
You got 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
No, I think that's about
Okay, fair enough. Tara, if you want to close, and also there was one question I missed. Someone wanted to know a little bit about grassroots targets, other regional targets that you might or might not pursue.
Okay, you want me to put that all in one there? Okay,
yeah,
grassroots, our Nitra property, there's lots of historic placer mining on that property, both historic and active, so those are some of our targets combined with some structural and geophysical targets over there. Gold Dome, which was just purchased by Victoria Gold, where there is a known intrusive gold deposit, is right on the edge. We've got some targets around that, and then there's placer mining around the main Ormac property as well. So stay tuned. We did early stage work on that. Why Banyan? Yep. We've got an exceptional resource. We already have 6.2 million ounces, and yes, I can see a view to 8, maybe even 10 there. I think the potential's there with continued drilling. That's exceptional. With our infrastructure in a jurisdiction where you can permit one First Nation that's a settled First Nation, which already has agreements. I think it's a very exciting time for Banyan, and we're de-risking it with the metallurgical work that we're doing, some high-level engineering. We could execute on a PEA very quickly if we thought that would add value. And I think gold is starting to get a little bit of attention, and certainly within jurisdictions where you can permit and develop.
Okay, Scott, your wrap up.
Yeah, I think really just the three key messages for Snowline are: one is this valley is a unique and exceptional discovery, and I think that similar to what Tara was saying, it's straightforward compared to a lot of gold systems to piece it together, even from just looking at the results and the region, or like the area that they're coming from so far. It has so many favorable attributes, and it looks to be something of the scale that could really be industry leading in the development pipeline of projects out there. And the second is the regional picture. Again, we didn't form the company to find value. We formed the company to explore that area, thinking that it was a prospective patch of ground, and so to find value in it right out of the gate, as well as some of the other early exploration successes that we've had, is truly encouraging in that vein. And the third is Snowline itself, the team that has come together behind the company, and we have a really hard-working group, and with common alignment, common goals, and working hard to build a new kind of company that really brings true value to shareholders and to the Yukon.
Very good. Please join me in thanking our presenters.